All right, so it's now time for business news, and Sandra Afenu is here, but she's also joined by Philip Namfuri, and they're going to be talking a lot more about a town hall meeting by the economic management team, and they're going to be focusing on microfinance. So Sandra, you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Israel. So the talk of town today is the historic town hall meeting by the economic management team. A close to 4 hours engagement touched on various issues on the economy. But tonight, we want to focus on the specialized deposit-taking institution, that's the microfinance and savings and loan sectors. Finance Minister Ken Ofori says some 953 million cedis has been earmarked for a cleanup in the microfinance sector, while 3 billion cedis will go into reforms in the savings and loan sector. Let's listen to the Finance Minister and we're back for the discussion.
In this transformation agenda. With regards to the banking issue, yes, we do intend to tackle the microfinance one. I think the estimate is around 953 odd million cedis that we actually have put in an escrow account to be able to tackle that. And then there's the SDIs, which is the savings and loans institutions, etc. And approximate is about 3 billion that it will cost us. So we need a plan to get through that.
Well, that was the Finance Minister Ken Ofori speaking today at the town hall meeting. But what's actually the state of these two sectors? That's the microfinance and the savings and loan sector. Let's take a look at this. So Philip Namfuri is back from a long break and he's here with all the fresh analysis. Thanks for your time tonight on business. So before we go into the microfinance sector, first of all, your assessments of the town hall meeting today and the Vice President's presentation.
Sandra, I think the Vice President's presentation was okay. It was spot on. But for me, someone who regularly and occasionally tracks economic data, nothing really stood out for me. I'll come to what stood out, but for me, it was just more like a refresher course, because most of the things were, if you follow economic data, you realize that you know where we are now, and you know where we've come from. So you can do the comparisons anytime. So for me, it was more like an update of what's going on. Just that how he presented was the more interesting part. The laxity with which he presents.
There was some flexibility.
Yes, some flexibility. For me, what stood out was the port side, the port reforms. That was important. And the reasons the Vice President adduced for the CD's depreciation in the first quarter. For me too, that also stood out. So those were the two. But apart from that, everything else was just
okay. So let's look at the microfinance sector. We saw the graphics play. Can you, first of all, before we go into the figures, what's the state of the microfinance sector? Okay,
so currently, let me start with the figures. Let me go against the way and start with the figures. So currently, about 37 savings and loans companies. Then about 484 Tier 2 microfinance.
But they all fall under the microfinance sector?
So microfinance, essentially like your graphic displayed, provision of services to the low-income earners. But Bank of Ghana categorized them into 4 tiers. Tier 1 deals with the savings and loans, finance houses, rural and community banks, etc. Tier 2 deals with the deposit-taking microfinance institutions. Tier 3 deals with the non-deposit-taking microfinance institutions. And then Tier 4 deals with the financial non-governmental organizations. So that's how they tiered it, just to bring. But they are all institutions that provide services to those that fall out of the main banking stream. So for savings and loans, there are about 37 operating in the country.
Licensed ones?
Licensed ones right now. I heard through the grapevines that they are 39, 38 because of the GN addition, because this figure was as at August 2018.
Okay.
With the tier 2 microfinance, there are 484 of them as at August 2018. If you look at the tier 3, that's the non-deposit taking, there are about 70 of them. But let's stick with the tier 2 because that's what we all know as a microfinance, the typical microfinance, the deposit taking ones. With the savings and loans, interesting facts about them. They have assets of about 6.8 billion Ghana cedis as at the end of December 2018.
Okay.
If you look at the banking, as at the end of December 2018 was about 38 billion. So that sector, microfinance sector, has come a long way in this country under the eye of Bank of Ghana.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into the figures now. Yes, we don't have a timeline given, but we know that some 953 million cedis has been earmarked for the cleanup of the microfinance sector, and then 3 billion actually going to the savings and loan sector. What should be the approach this time? I'm asking this because when we're doing the commercial bank cleanup, we saw what happened. Banks were taken by surprise. And so what should be the approach this time? Do you foresee it going to be the same or something is going to change?
Well, Sandra, I foresee more conversation between the regulator and these microfinance institutions. I heard through the grapevines with persons close to the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies that Bank of Ghana had engaged them for a meeting on the way forward with the savings and loans sector. So with regards to the savings and loans sector, I can say with some confidence that there should be some orderly manner. Not to say that the banking sector cleanup wasn't orderly, but you know the fallout of it was quite messy. So we want to see a more contained approach when it comes to the savings and loan sector. And the figure that was put by the finance minister was about 3 billion. And this is quite high.
The 3 billion going to the savings and loans, and then 953
for the microfinance, and I suspect it's the tier 2 microfinance, the deposit takers, because the non-deposit taking, obviously you come with a fixed deposit and then they work with the money you give back to. But then the deposit taking ones are the ones where if you are on the lower end of the market and you go and deposit money there, imagine you're a fisherman, you're a farmer, and your funds go down, there'll be a problem. The reason why there's a lot of importance attached to this cleanup is that microfinance deals with low-income earners, poor people, and these people are very disadvantaged, Sandra, already. And getting some of them on board financial services is a tough sell. So imagine their issues, and look at what even happened in the banking sector. Educated, well-educated people frustrated in the streets of Accra. You can imagine what happens to a fisherman or a farmer somewhere in the hinterlands.
Do we know the source of funding for this cleanup? We know the World Bank would be supported, but is it all coming from the World Bank or?
Sandra, this one I'll just say plainly, our money. where are we going to get it from?
Yeah.
That's why even with the Vice President's presentation, he included the cost of the banking sector in the debt to GDP ratio, with it and without it. So by all means, it has to come from within.
Finally, the theme for today's presentation, moving forward, how is that going to impact on the future of the microfinance sector?
Okay, today's theme was our progress, our status, our future. It's the future that we are concerned with. Beyond this, there were a lot of issues in the microfinance subsector. Mission drift, most of them are moving away from their core mandate. We saw some of these savings and loans given blaming their problems on contractors they're giving loans to. We know you're supposed to diversify your deposit base and then diversify your lending, obviously, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you should go into areas reserved for the mainstream banks. So we should see some of these things corrected. And the managerial skills of most of these people and institutions was terribly poor. Research has shown, anecdotal evidence has shown. So going forward, we should expect that after this cleanup, not only the cost of it, but we should see further better improvements in how these issues are managed.
It's always a pleasure having you, Philip Namfuri, for all those analysis. But we'll be getting more reaction from the town hall meeting when I return after 8 p.m. with more business news. My name is Sandra Isinamapeno.